Good afternoon and welcome to First Financial Biz Beat, presented by the Business Courier. I'm Kyla Woods. Diversity is the not-so-secret ingredient to business success. For a city and a region to truly thrive, everyone must have an opportunity to contribute. And once again this year, the Courier is partnering with the Chamber for the Climb Awards, given to those who not only embrace diversity, but make it part of their true identity. And we begin today with one of those winners, the Children's Home of Cincinnati. Chief Administrative Officer Roderick Hinton is with Courier editor Rob Dahmeyer.
Thank you very much. And Roderick, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you, and we are so appreciative of being honored in this way.
Well, we're excited to have you here. First, before we get into the Climb Award, tell the viewers a little bit about what the Children's House does.
Yeah, so the Children's Home is a organization that's been around since 1864, so about 156 or 57 years. And obviously we have evolved over that time from being an orphanage, hence the word home, to being the place today that works with young kids and their families who have some type of mental or behavioral health challenge and or need some additional assistance educationally. Our mission is to create lasting results that strengthen all families and our community by guiding individuals from infancy to independence in their lives through comprehensive education, behavioral, and health services. We work with nearly 15,000 kids and families in the region that are generally at risk or vulnerable population of some sort.
Why was Children's Home a candidate for our Climb Awards this year? What was it about Children's Home that made it a good candidate for the award?
I believe the Children's Home was a candidate for the Climb Award and was honored for this as an organization in the greater Cincinnati region who has helped in building a diverse workforce, championing equitable practices, and developing inclusive cultures. For us, it is important to be intimately engaged and a leader around equity, diversity, and inclusion. We serve a vulnerable population of kids and families, 90% of which have experienced some type of trauma, be that being raped, so witnessing a murder, parental divorce, whatever it is. And so in doing so, it's important for us to acknowledge the challenges that impact these 90% of our 15,000 clients around equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it is the focus that the Children's Home has made in that has made us a candidate and honored with the Climb Award.
Has the focus on diversity and inclusion, has this been a long-running project at Children's Home, or is it a more recent effort? Tell me a little bit about how this started.
Yeah, so at the height of the conversation around equity and justice that we witnessed early on in this year, we began in earnest to say we wanted to be a leader around this conversation, especially because of the students and the families that we work with. And so we convened a diverse and a very select group of professionals here on the campus of the Children's Home to engage in the development of a comprehensive strategy around equity, diversity, and inclusion. Again, an aim to become a leader around the subject in our region. And while we're in the early stages of intentionally creating a strategy, we have experienced some successes.
So Roderick, how has a focus on diversity and inclusion helped the Children's House?
Well, as I said earlier, and at the height of this conversation around justice, it was important for us to convene a group to really intentionally look at this. As we have done so, and as we continue to learn and to figure this out for our own organization, what we've done so far is we've diversified our minority vendor and purchasing power. Our employees are now more intentionally engaged in tough conversations with the end outcome of creating policies and protocols and practices and a culture that reflects equity, diversity, and inclusion so that we can have the most impact on our 15,000 at-risk families. The process has also allowed the leaders of our organization to examine protocols and policies in a way that allows for inclusive language. And finally, I would say as a success early on, this process has allowed our professionals to become their best selves because they are engaging in a thoughtful conversation about how EDI impacts our organization and, more importantly, how it impacts our clients that we serve.
Fantastic.
All of this year's Climb Award winners will be honored during a virtual ceremony that will be broadcast at 6 p.m. December 17th on Star 64. And later in this broadcast, we'll sit down with Chamber President Jill Meyer to talk about the annual Diverse by Design Symposium. The pandemic has caused economic havoc everywhere, but it's hit the restaurant industry especially hard. Daniel Wright and his wife are closing their restaurants, Senate, Pontiac, and 40 Thieves, until February. Wright says they want to provide a great and safe work environment for people for the next 10 years and not just suffer through the next 10 weeks. In Mount Healthy, Fibonacci Brewing is closing its tap room. The owner says the decision was purely financial, as social distancing rules made it hard to stay open.
There's very little room for people to even come inside. Then COVID cases are surging. There's a new curfew. It's really not starting to make sense to be open indoors and still continue to operate a sustainable business.
Fibonacci will continue selling beer at its drive-through or by delivery. Well, most business owners agree one of the best ways to help is to buy gift cards.
It helps with the cash flow. It helps keep the doors open so we can keep our staff here. I mean, you know, as long as we've got money coming in, we can pay our staff to stay here. And that's the most important thing to us right now is, you know, we're a small restaurant, so our staff is like family to us.
The hope is that those gift cards can help restaurants ride out restrictions, especially in Kentucky, where indoor dining is still banned for another week. Other places like Butler's Pantry in Covington are creating holiday baskets and take-home meal kits to keep up that cash flow. Newport is helping its businesses by launching a financial assistance program. Grants of up to $1,000 are available, and the focus is helping restaurants, bars, and gyms. You can get an application on Newport's website, and applications will close on January 4th or when the money runs out. There's a new member of Cincinnati City Council. Attorney Steve Gooden is the interim replacement for Jeff Pastor. He was appointed by Hamilton County probate judge Ted Winkler. Gooden, who's a Republican, says his goals include addressing the pandemic, jump-starting the economy, and rooting out systemic corruption in council.
I'm not here to advance any kind of partisan agenda. I'm very mindful that my appointment did not come through an electoral process. You know, the matters that I believe face this council are not matters of right or left. They're matters of right and wrong.
Pastor did not resign, but agreed to a suspension while his bribery case goes through the courts. He is still getting paid by the city, but cannot perform any official duties. Corruption is why a familiar face has decided it's time to get back into City Hall. Former Councilman Kevin Flynn is running for council next year. Flynn served one term from 2013 to 2017, but decided not to run again, saying he never intended to turn politics into a career. He says the arrests of Pastor, P.G. Sittenfeld, and Tamaya Denard influenced his change of heart.
What has happened to our city? Where did the integrity go? When did it become okay to not show up, to collect a paycheck, and literally expect people doing business with the city to hand you bags of cash?
City elections are next November. Sittenfeld was term limited and was running for mayor, where he was seen as the favorite. Up next on BizBeat, the European Adventures, small town Kentucky flea market, and Victorian home that laid the groundwork for local online auction site Everything But the House. If there's one constant about Cincinnati's largest businesses, they're all run by white men. And that's what makes Barbara Turner's new role such a huge deal. Ohio National is now the largest greater Cincinnati-based company with not only a woman in charge, but a woman of color, too. And we're honored to have that kind of trailblazer on our show with us this afternoon. Hello, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Kyla. How are you?
I'm doing really great and even better now that you're with us. So let's get right to it. Tell us about that moment when you realized just how monumental this appointment is and what you hope that it represents to future women leaders, especially Black women.
So initially, my first thought was just honored and thrilled to be recognized for my hard work and dedication over the years. But then as it really sunk in, and I thought about the fact that this is a 110-year-old company, and to be the first female and person of color, one may say, well, it's about time, but on the other hand, it's a reality, and it really speaks to Ohio National, but also to many other young women, young brown boys and girls that they too have such opportunities. And so once I got beyond the, wow, this is really happening, I started thinking about what it could mean to others.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that as far as young women. So what would you say to a young woman who's maybe just starting in her career about being strategic and having those high aspirations and never underestimating herself?
The first thing that I would say is, you have to own your power. You have to believe in yourself and your abilities. You have to be willing to work hard and be a net giver, but also you have to be very deliberate about what you want and do things like track your accomplishments, volunteer for key assignments, make sure that you network in a way that will allow you to show up in places where maybe you can identify sponsors or mentors or individuals have an opportunity to see what you're capable of. I know one thing for me is quite often individuals saw more in me than I saw in myself, but it was because I worked really hard and frequently volunteered for key assignments. And I always led and worked with integrity and built trust amongst others. And so I would say work hard, lead with integrity, volunteer, be a net giver, not always asking others to help you, but be willing to help others. And be passionate about what you do. Don't go after an assignment just because of money. Make sure that it's something that you really believe in and that's aligned with your core values, and that you're passionate about the mission of the organization.
Such rich, incredible advice there. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. And lastly, of course, 2020 has been difficult for so many industries, and the financial industry was not immune to that. How do you plan to hit the ground running as CEO on January 1st?
I'll continue to do what I've always done. I'm going to lead. I'm going to lead with integrity. I'm going to be strategically focused and make sure that my team is strategically focused, and we're going to continue to do the great work that we've been doing and helping individuals achieve financial independence and security. There is a great need for the products and services that we offer, and it's even greater now given the pandemic. And so our strategy remains the same. My leadership style will remain the same. I'm excited about what we do. I'm passionate about our mission. And so we will do more of the same, and we will deliver on our promises and commitments.
Absolutely. Barbara, before I let you go, I have to let you know that I read a quote from you earlier this year where you talked about wanting to lift as you climb and how that's important to you and how you want to represent Cincinnati as a strong and vibrant community, and you are doing just that. So thank you so much for your incredible leadership. We look forward to continuing to support you as we go into 2021, and congratulations again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your kind words and support.
Thank you. Brian Graves always wanted to be a collector. He just didn't always know it. The founder of the auction site Everything But the House split his summers touring castles in Europe. His mom is European and visiting court days in Kentucky, where his dad is from. Court days are essentially flea markets. It carried over into his adult life when, at just 20 years old, he brought an old Victorian home to restore. And that is what ignited his love affair with collecting.
It didn't make sense to just buy new furniture, so what I found myself doing is I got re-engaged with estate auctions and estate sales, and a lot of it had to do actually with not having much money at the time and not being able to afford much. So what we found ourselves doing was going to buy antiques, you know, on a budget. And what was most interesting to me was finding out what these things were actually worth. I would go to this auction, I would see people pay crazy amounts of money in my mind for what some of these things were, and it really got me to understand that there are things that really have a lot of value, and if you know what you're doing, you can actually collect very nice and fine things on a budget as long as you really pay attention to how and where you buy them.
Graves says they've sold things that come from the desks of presidents and documents of historical importance. Coming soon, a replica of a T-Rex and a 1956 Mercedes 190 SL convertible. Kroger is giving foodies a little boost to help them chase their dreams. They are partnering with the Northern Kentucky Incubator Kitchen Collective to sponsor 3 companies to work out of the kitchen rent-free all next year. Founder Rachel DeRochers hopes the grants will attract businesses that are ready to take the next step professionally. Applications are open through December 14th. And 2 new classes of promising entrepreneurs have been launched into the marketplace thanks to Mortar. They named the latest 2 winners at their semi-annual graduation and pitch night ceremony. John Cortez with Frying Pig Seasoning won the Judge's Choice, and Angela Ayakani won the People's Choice Award. Mortar has been recognized nationally for their work and was the only Ohio nonprofit recently selected by PayPal for a grant to help Black-owned businesses. Still to come on First Financial Biz Beat, we'll take you inside what is now the world's largest Ronald McDonald house and tell you about all the new things it has to offer to help families feel at home. The University of Cincinnati will be looking for a new apparel partner soon. The school signed a 10-year, $50 million partnership back in 2015. But Under Armour is in major cost-cutting mode, so they've come to an agreement to get out of their sponsorship with the Bearcats halfway through. They agreed to a nearly $10 million exit fee while continuing to outfit teams through next June. Cincinnati is now home to the largest Ronald McDonald house in the world. The ribbon was cut this past week on the facility in Avondale. There are 99 new rooms, bringing the total to 177. An expanded kitchen, new indoor and outdoor play spaces, an arts and crafts room, and a fitness center. The facility becomes a home away from home for families with patients undergoing treatment across the street at Children's Hospital.
We will be able to more than double the number of families who live with us every year. And while that's just numbers, if you talk to any family who lives here, you know what that means to them, to not have to worry about the cost of a hotel, to know that they're going to get 2 delicious meals every day, and to be able to be right across the street from their child who's in the hospital.
And if you haven't noticed yet, diversity is the theme of today's show. We're going to continue that with how the city attracts and keeps diverse talent. Jill Meyer, president and CEO of the Cincinnati Chamber, talks about an upcoming event that does just that with Courier Market Engagement Director Kelly Snyder.
Thanks, Kyla. Jill, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kelly, for having me.
Sure. So I've been to several of the Diverse by Design events, and I always walk away so excited and full of hope and meeting new people. Like everything else this year with the pandemic, I'm assuming the symposium is going to be a little bit different. So we'd love to have you tell us what this year's symposium looks like.
I would love to. So you're right, it'll be a little bit different this year because we won't all be gathered with 800 plus of our favorite friends in the same room. But what we will be doing is gathering in a virtual room, and we're hoping we can get even more people in that room than we could in the physical room. But it'll be the same format where we spend half of a day gathered together, talking about our opportunities as a business community and as a broader community to really focus in on diversity, equity, and inclusion and how we can do it better.
That's great. And then tell us a little bit about the keynote speakers and how that works.
So yeah, thanks for asking that, because typically what we've done is built this conference around the latest national speaker on these topics. It's normally somebody who's recently issued a book or written some insightful articles about some new best practices. What we did this year in the summer months, as we were all processing as individuals and as communities, the racial equity matters that are so important to all of us. Our conversations with Fifth Third Bank, who's the presenting sponsor of this event, really started focusing on how do we do better as a community. And we realized that we had sitting right here in our own community some not only best practices, but some cutting edge practices by some of our corporations, as well as the acknowledgement that we have a long road to go, but that shouldn't mean that we don't celebrate what we're doing well and extend the opportunity for other leaders to learn from some of those who are doing a really good job. So we're going to do a keynote speech that is a combination. It's two speakers. It's Greg Carmichael, who's the CEO of Fifth Third, and it's David Taylor, who's the CEO of Procter & Gamble. And those are two companies, obviously, who are cutting edge and are so invested in this work and have really made some enormous impacts, both internally as well as for their external communities. So they're going to be our dual keynote speakers and will be moderated in a conversation led by Rico Grant.
That's great. Well, I'm already registered, and I know we have some information to share on the screen for how other people can register. And thank you so much for the important work that you're doing in this space. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Kelly. I hope to see everybody there.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for First Financial Biz Beat. A heads up for next Saturday will be on Star 64 at 11:30. I'm Kyla Woods. Have a wonderful and safe weekend.